Hello, I'm Casey Aiken, and this is 21 This Week. Coming up next, Democratic Party candidates debate who should lead the county. Property tax increases in Montgomery County exceeds the rate of inflation. The Maryland General Assembly adjourns. But what was accomplished? Our panel of insiders will give you the story behind the story. We're joined by civic activist Cary Lamari and president of the Maryland Young Republicans, Jackie Sackstein. Stay tuned for these stories and more on the next 21 This Week. And welcome to 21 This Week. Annapolis wraps up another legislative session, but did it actually solve anything? We saw an energy bill hit with relief, immigration bills passed at the last minute, and ongoing concerns about spending oversight and transparency. There's a lot to cover today. Cary, Democrats would argue this session tackled real issues: energy costs, immigration policy, housing. What was really accomplished?
Not that much. Like I was saying, like you and I have talked, we created this illusion that we're trying to do something. Like for example, in the energy bill, they're trying to create another industry of your internet services. You get to pick and choose which one serves you, or your cell service. Now it's electric, and trying to lock in future costs. But they're not dealing with the root of the problem, and that's demand, electric demand. We're the hub of the international data centers, here in Loudoun County in Virginia. We're paying the price because the amount of electricity and water that they're using is creating a burden on our ratepayers here in Maryland. How do we deal with that? You got to get to the root cause. There has to be a summit between Maryland and Virginia on the Potomac River, and they don't want to deal with that, especially in an election year.
Well, that's always the problem, is getting something done during an election year. But Jackie, Maryland passed the Community Trust Act, which limits cooperation with ICE. No detainers, no transfers, no notification without a judicial warrant. Supporters say it builds trust in immigrant communities. Critics say it creates legal risks. Where do you come down?
Yeah, I mean, I think
really accomplished here.
I think what you really need to look at is what happened in Minneapolis. What happens when local police are not allowed to cooperate with ICE is that they end up having to go and find the people who have arrest warrants themselves. And when they're going after the worst of the worst, which again is what the Trump admin had promised to do, they're also inevitably in these neighborhoods going to come across not the worst of the worst, but people who are still in this country illegally, which again is a crime. And they are supposed to do their job, which is to get them out of here. Now, if the worst of the worst, let's say somebody who murdered somebody was in this country illegally, was arrested, and they were allowed to contact ICE and say, hey, we picked up this guy, he murdered somebody, and he is an illegal immigrant, we could get him out of here. We could go right to the jails and get him out of here, which is, I would say, way more. I can't think of anybody on the other side who would say, let's keep the illegal immigrant murderers in the country. But we've seen now time and again in blue states or blue areas where they're being told you can't work with ICE, that they're also soft on crime. We're seeing illegal immigrant criminals being let back on the street only to go and commit a worse crime, and it's too late. Lives are lost.
I want to go to Cary on this. Cary, was this just a visceral reaction to the Trump administration? I mean, there was a whole expansion of immigration protections, some of which may or may not be legally constitutional. I mean, they banned the 287G program. They banned all they don't want ICE agents to have masks on. I mean, this just seems that there's a visceral reaction and not a actual policy that's being implemented.
I would agree that Trump is the catalyst. The Trump policies is the catalyst for the reaction that's occurring. But having said that, I don't disagree with requiring, law enforcement to have judicial warrants instead of administrative warrants. I mean, the Fourth Amendment protections are guaranteed to everybody in this country. the only problem I have is the way I mean, Jackie, to speak to your terms, if you committed a murder, I don't care if you're an immigrant or whatever, they're going to pick you up and they're going to hand you over to ICE. The problem that I have is where they limit, for example, rapes, if a person served a less than 12-month term in prison for rape, let's say, he gets protected under this new bill. Whereas if he served any more than that, boom, he's going to go, he's going to go to jail, or he's going to be picked up by ICE. They're and as far as the masks are concerned, come on. I mean,
Well, let's just focus on what's going to
okay,
happen
that's fine.
with
That's
this, with as a result of this legislation. And Jackie, with the laws of physics and the laws of political physics every action has a reaction. Is the Trump administration going to cut funding for Maryland as a result of it becoming a sanctuary state? Or
Oh,
are we going to see
100%.
an uptick in ICE activity to enforce the law?
I think you're going to see a combination of both. I think in areas like Montgomery County that are blue, they're going to, comply with what the state is doing and say, yeah, like we don't want to touch ICE, we don't want to work with them, which unfortunately I think is going to lead to an uptick in crime in these areas. But when you look at people on the Eastern Shore and out in Western Maryland and the redder parts of the state, their sheriffs already saying, like, looking for ways to continue to cooperate with ICE because they're saying, we're not doing this. This is not what we don't believe that this is the right thing to do. We believe that we should be helping out law enforcement, and this is not going to make our community safer. So I think that unfortunately the whole state is going to bear, the brunt of the repercussions from the Trump administration. I do think that we're going to lose federal funding, but the red counties are still going to try and work with ICE. They're going to find ways around it.
Well, we have to go to our next topic because there's a lot to talk about. And Cary, you talked about it originally, the focus on the energy bill. Let's start with what the General Assembly says this bill will do. Supporters call it the crown jewel of the session, arguing it will provide consumer relief from rising utility costs, stabilize rates, and position Maryland for future energy demand, even if much of that relief may take time to show up in people's bill. So here's the question. Is this legislation real near-term relief for Maryland ratepayers, or a long-term policy solution that doesn't actually address the immediate need of people today?
To me,
Yep, that's you.
I don't see how it can meet the needs of the people today. We just had a winter where our electric bills doubled. I mean, that's insanity. Okay. They're talking about freezing prices for residents of the county and allowing it to go up just a little bit. Yeah, but if your starting place is double and it can go up a little bit, I mean, you can see where that brings us. The problem again is the consumption of electricity. We have a 40% deficit in the state of Maryland. We are buying 40% of our electricity out of state, which creates higher costs for electricity. The problem we have is that our neighbor, Loudoun County, beat us to the punch, built all these data centers, tapped the Potomac River for water, and today the Potomac River is endangered, okay, for not only low water during drought, but which could harm our water intake for our homes, right? But they're using that water not for people's lives, but for commercial purposes, and they're doing it under a mandate that's 150 years old. The reality is today, our state, Maryland, and Virginia have to get together and update those policies.
Well, we got to give it to Jackie because we are running out of time. I've seen this movie before, Jackie. It was called Empower Maryland, and there are now whistleblowers that say millions have been misspent or over the savings overstated. So is this just another feel good policy that the General Assembly has passed?
Well, there's not too much to feel good about because at the end of the day, it's saving the average ratepayer $12.50, which when your bill is $800+ is not that much of a relief. And, Carrie is completely right. We are importing most of our energy. I personally think that the solution isn't shutting down more of our energy plants, which is what the Moore administration has been doing, but rather keeping Calvert Cliffs open and actually expanding its usage. And if people don't know what Calvert Cliffs is, it's the only nuclear plant we have in this state. We really should be ramping that up. We need to be generating more electricity. We need to not be importing it from other states. And if you go and look by line on your bill, that in power fee costs more than the actual electricity yourself that you're paying for. At least on my
Well,
bill, it does. So that
well,
should be gone.
we're going
And
to
the
talk
more
about the hidden fee. We
administration,
got to talk. We got to keep moving. I'm sorry, Jackie, but you're absolutely right. And it's about hidden fees. And this is one that really, well, it grates my gears. And Cary, you're going to let you talk about this. There is now a paint fee, essentially a surcharge on every gallon of paint sold in the state. And the money goes to a third-party nonprofit program, regardless of how many cans of paint or gallons of paint they recycle. These are the kind of charges that I find just mind blowing. Cary, you got any thoughts on this?
These are punitive taxes. Punitive taxes. It's not just the paint fee. It's, you have the energy tax in our electric bill that was supposed to sunset 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's exponentially going up with the increased electric bills. You got the bag tax. I mean, you've got stormwater tax. It's too much.
Well, I'm sorry we have to cut this off because we do have two other topics for today. It was great. And as Jackie said at the very beginning, we could talk about the General Assembly and what they did for an hour. So maybe we'll have
Or
to have a little bit more next time. Stay tuned when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. Turning local, Montgomery County's next county executive race is heating up. Democratic candidates are starting to define themselves, especially around affordability, housing, and growth. At the same time, the county faces slowing affordable housing investment and real budget pressures. Cary, in the past two elections in the Democratic primary, there were clear lines of demarcation between Mark Elrich and David Blair, who represented a pro-growth agenda, with Ehrlich winning on both occasions. This time, Democratic candidates largely are competing in the same lane: housing, equity, service. Is this a real debate or just a shade of differences
you
in the
know
candidates?
what happened to mental health? Okay, I mean, it wasn't that a topic that was major in the last election, the election before that, the election before that. No, every election they bring up the same old dead topics. We just saw the silver bill in Annapolis die. It died because it increases the cost of housing. It increases the cost of tenants, related rents. It limits growth. You've got candidates now running for public office. The only one actually, and I find it amazing, that's even pertinent to the current events is Evan Glass when he's talking about let's look at the realities of what the problems are with data centers. At least he's talking about a current issue affecting our economy and affecting our quality of life and our environment. So uh, our candidates, and they need to get away from all this special interest influence. I mean, Andrew Friedson has gotten more money from the development community. I mean, my God, how much does it cost to run for a county executive? I'd love to hear that. Will
Well,
Jawando has the
every
same
election
problem.
seems to get more and more expensive, Cary. And
It's
we're going to turn to
ridiculous.
Jackie. Jackie, Republicans traditionally haven't been competitive in Montgomery County, but affordability is becoming an issue. There are other issues that are on point. And if the Republicans are hoping to make a challenge, this the year that they're able to do it.
I would love to be able to say yes and be the eternal optimist I always am. And Esther Wells is a great friend of mine. I think she has fantastic ideas, but there's a lot of factors working against us. One, you have the media that is not giving equal coverage to the Republican candidates. They only care about the Democrat candidates. And two, there are always going to be, and this is not just Montgomery County, but all over the country, there's red states, red counties, blue counties. And there are some people that, regardless of what they hear, how bad things get, are just going to continue to vote party line. And, until something gets bad enough that they've had enough, nothing's going to change.
So, Cary, that's an interesting mix of people that are running for county executive on the Democratic side. And of course, one of them is council member Will Jawando. And there have been allegations that he might be pushing the boundaries on public campaign financing rules. And the issue is, will these allegations harm him or and have a negative effect on his campaign? Or is it just water under the bridge?
It's water under the bridge. I ran in the last election. Okay. I saw candidates publicly state on social media, send me money and say you live in Montgomery County so I can put it towards our public finance campaign. These people were admitting that they lived in Laurel or they lived in, in Hollywood, but they're somehow getting it into no, it's water under the bridge. Once you're approved in the public, realm of financing, there's very little accountability and there's very little review on what you do, unfortunately. But then again, if you're not taking public dollars, we got Andrew Friedson, you're talking about $1 million, $1.5 million in contribution from the commercial development community. I mean, give me a break. I mean, there should be a limit.
What's wrong with that?
There should be a limit.
Why?
I mean, how much does it cost? I mean, that's the problem with our country. You want to run for public office unless you have deep, deep, deep pockets, right? How do you represent the people? We the people, the people's interest, not the interest of special people. Okay? I mean,
are you suggesting that everybody who takes public financing
abso-frickin-lutely
doesn't have a constituent group that they're beholden to?
Yeah, they shouldn't. They shouldn't be beholden to, and they should be beholden to the people of this country, the people of this county, the interests of the residents.
There would be no politicians left in Washington or anywhere else if that was the case.
The biggest
We'd have honest government.
Gorilla endorsement is always from the teachers union. And you think the people that are getting endorsed by the teachers union aren't beholden to them?
Did I say that?
No.
They definitely are beholden to them. They're beholden to CASA, and that's the problem with politics today.
Well,
okay?
you're gonna have the last word on that.
Thank you.
Because we're going to talk about a real fun issue now. Property taxes. Now the issue hitting every homeowner. Recent data shows property tax growth is outpacing inflation, not by a little, but by a lot. And at the same time, County Executive Mark Elridge is proposing a 6% tax increase. And so the county council struggles on how to respond. Jackie, Adam Pagnucco wrote a brilliant piece that demonstrated receipts from real property taxes are rising faster than inflation. So at what point are families going to rebel and say this is unsustainable?
I mean, hopefully any day now. They did the same exact thing last year. They wanted to raise them 10%, and it's because of the blueprint, because that cost of the blueprint is being pushed onto the counties. It's not affordable, and the only thing that they can think of to do is continue to raise our taxes to cover it. Our spending on MCPS has continued to go up. We're not seeing better results for our students. We've been seeing a lot more violence in the schools because there's no SROs there. We have a spending problem. We don't have a let's keep raising the taxes to fix the problem. We should be having serious conversations about our budget and what we're spending and what is the value we're getting out of that money that you're going to keep taking from me. We're pushing people out of the county because they just can't afford to live here anymore. So for a county that keeps pushing affordable housing, doesn't matter how cheap you make the houses are, if your taxes are going to keep going up, people aren't going to stay.
So Cary, what's up with the county taxes?
Oh my God. First of all, we're losing the wealthier residents of the county. They're moving out like crazy. So that and the people in need of affordable housing, that population is increasing in the county. Yet our housing costs are going up, and the county doesn't want to address that. We've got rent control, which means a lot of our mom and pop landlords, they're getting. I own 3 houses that I rent, or 2 that I rent, and 1 that I have empty, and I refuse to rent. I'm going to sell it because I'm not going to play this game with the county. I don't want to be involved in there, and that hurts. That hurts the rental market. Look, the question is, do we have it? And you mentioned the blueprint. That's an old excuse. The blueprint was developed. I thought it was an exaggerated proposal when it was proposed during good economic times, or reasonably good economic times. Today, you have to ask yourself a question. Is our economy static or dynamic? And if it's dynamic, which it is, we're seeing it with the situation with the world economy, et cetera, with gas prices, food prices, et cetera, then we have to be flexible enough to make those changes. The question is our council dynamic? And if so, they should realize that the average public cannot afford increased property taxes. It's ridiculous, and they need to find a way to step away from that for a period of time.
All right. Well, that's a perfect setup for and a segue for the next question. And we only have a few minutes left, and I'm going to propose this question to both of you. There are those that say that the increased tax proposal is a shell game. It's the Montgomery County two-step. The council will offer outrage at the size of the increase. Oh my God, 6.5%. We can't do that. And instead approve an increase of 5% and claim that they're cutting taxes.
Victory.
So what is the mood of the voter? I want to hone in on the mood of the voter. Are they getting angry enough to protest business as usual? Jackie first, then Cary.
Go for it, Jackie.
I mean, like I said before, they did the same exact thing last year. I believe Mark Elward proposed a 10% increase, and they landed on 5%. And oh my God, well, look, 5% is still a lot. My property taxes went up significantly in the last year. And again, they're just going to do the same exact thing all over again. Unfortunately, like I said, I think people are angry, and they're going to keep yelling at the wall. But at the end of the day, they're going to keep voting the same way. And until we get rid of the people we have now and bring in some new people, maybe to Cary's point, that aren't beholden to the same special interests, or who are actually willing to take a serious look at the budget and make actual cuts to it, substantial cuts, then we're not going to keep, we're just going to keep seeing an increase in our property taxes and all of our other taxes. And those speeding cameras that they keep using as a cash grab, I'm still mad about those. Got 3.
Would you get a ticket recently? Anyway, Cary, you get to wrap
in my
up.
opinion, and from my perspective, I think we're in the middle of the biggest tax revolt that we've ever seen, and people are subtly talking about that on Facebook and next door. Personally, but at the end of the day, I believe that if this council does approve taxes like this, what you're going to see is an absolute revolt. They're going to vote for anybody but an incumbent. Okay, they're not going to care. They're going to figure, hey, if the incumbents are screwing things up and making our lives miserable, as someone who has no knowledge of government at all can't do any worse. Well, I mean, reality, it's come to that scale.
I think it's a great point because, for the last 2 weeks, I've been asking the panelists about the mood of the voting public. And I see it also on social media. Shockingly on Nextdoor, I've seen criticism of the council president. So I think the voters are getting very angry, and we'll see what the council, whether they listen or not. Stay tuned for Party Shots when we come back from this short break. And welcome back. Now with Party Shots, Jackie Sackstein.
All right, so we saw a sudden, once again, change in seasons. I don't know what season it is anymore, but it started hitting the 90s and getting really hot. And as a new puppy owner, I just want to remind everybody who has dogs or who has animals that they take out for a walk that pavement gets really, really hot. And if it's hot on your feet, it's going to be really hot on theirs. So take good care of your pets so as it gets hot out. Make sure they're staying hydrated. Make sure that when you're walking them that they have grass to walk on and not black asphalt, because you want to keep them healthy and safe because they love you unconditionally, so we should treat them the same.
You put little booties on your dog's feet.
I don't think he would let me do that. They make
Oh,
little Crocs for dogs
give him
now.
some flip-flops. Maybe that's what he needs. All right, Cary Lamari, your parting shot.
Look, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but this is a message to Donald Trump, the president of this country. Grow up. Stop your ridiculous, childish behavior and attacking a pope. Really, on peaceful tranquility of the world. This war is costing us billions and hundreds of billions of dollars. It's time to stop. We have a $39 trillion deficit. You've got an $8 trillion budget coming up, and you have a country that is in need of infrastructure and guidance. You want to be a leader? You want to be righteous in some way? Lead us. All right? Okay? Deal with it. Deal with the issues that affect the public. And you know what? I'm tired of the ridiculous nonsense. Thank you, and I'm so sorry.
Well, Cary, thank you, and Jackie, thank you. Appreciate your parting shots. I want to thank you for your time, for being here today to talk about very important issues for the state of Maryland and the county. And I want to thank the audience for tuning in each and every week to Montgomery County's hardest hitting political talk show. For 21 this week, I'm Casey Aiken.